So you probably know this dude, right? Yeah, the one that plays piano and stuff. But you probably didn't know he was an unwashed freak and a raging alcoholic. Well, you're about to find out why. Let's get to the video. So our guy was born in 1770 in Bonn, a place in modern-day Germany. From birth his dad wanted him to be a child prodigy like Mozart. Well, wanted wouldn't be the right word, it was more like forced. And talking about his dad, the guy looks like this, but he was more like this, so we are gonna use that to depict him. Well, can you guess what his dad did to quote-unquote raise him like Mozart? His methods included, drumroll please, dragging him out of bed to practice at night, brutally spanking him, locking him in the cellar, forcing to play in front of crowds, making him stand on a stool for hours, and forcing him to listen to this song. Okay, I made the last one up, but you get the idea. His childhood kinda sucked, and by the way, according to some sources his dad was either bipolar or suffered from lead poisoning, so I guess that explains it. Talking about performing to strangers, his dad once forced him to play in public, lied about his age, and tried to market him as a child prodigy in hopes of getting noticed by nobility, because apparently that was how Mozart made it big. But guess what? No one gave a shit, and he probably took his anger out of his son. Anyways, this dude eventually grew up, as humans usually do, and moved to Vienna in his 20s, and he happened to move right after Mozart died, so people kinda expected him to be the next Mozart. He initially went to study under a guy named Joseph Haydn, but the guy was mostly AFK, so Beethoven kinda did his own thing. In fact, he secretly studied under different teachers. Anyways, turns out Beethoven is insanely talented. Vienna loved this guy. He blew up almost overnight. The guy could write entire symphonies on the spot. So what happened is the nobility of the city sponsored him. By sponsored I don't mean like advertised city toilet cleaner, I mean more like just get paid to exist and be cool. And that's basically how he funded his life, and well, later his addiction too. So anyways, a young prodigy with childhood traumas becomes the star of the city almost overnight. What happens? Yeah, you guessed it, he becomes a freak. The guy wasn't too good with hygiene, or dressing properly, or anything related to those, but somehow still got invited to the rich parties. And guess what he would do in those parties? Yell at the rich people, act unhinged, talk over everyone, and hit on every woman he had no chance with. He was never actually good with women, but we'll get to that later. By the way, he changed apartments more than 60 times, not because he couldn't pay the rent but because he was really messy and also paranoid. He would constantly fear that the neighbors would hear and steal his music or spy on him. And he never cleaned, like ever. He could probably competed with Discord mods in that area, to be honest. Also, he f***ing hated landlords, so I guess that's also why. But I mean, I'm with him on that one. And since he had basically infinite money, he turned into a raging alcoholic. Like father like son, huh? And don't think he drank something like high-quality wine since he was rich and living among the upper class in Vienna. This is Beethoven we are talking about. He was chugging lead-flavored gas station wine on a daily basis, which was also probably why he got lead poisoning and his liver gave up on him later on. Anyways, one day he was like, man, why does this piano sound like gas? Turns out, he was going deaf, and not slightly deaf, I mean like can't hear type of deaf. So he first thought of unaliving himself, but then he was like, never mind, I'll just attach a metal mechanism into my mouth and play piano like that. Yes, he actually did that. But then he actually writes his best music, talking about this one. So there's no way you haven't heard this. It's basically everywhere. Well, he actually wrote this song for one of his students whom he was in love with. He intentionally made it an easy song so she could learn it, but eventually her family was like, look, we know you're Beethoven. We know you're a genius, but nope, you're 40, you're a creep, you smell like dead raccoons, you're an alcoholic and you're deaf, so respectfully f*** off. Imagine how upset he would have been if he could hear that. So anyways, Beethoven gets super mad and makes the second half of the song so hard that she could never play it. Wow, what a professional hater. Fast forward, Beethoven's brother dies and he decides to take care of his son. How awesome, right? Wrong. He traumatizes his niece so bad that bro tried to unalive himself. Well, what do we say? Like father like son. Anyways, then he proceeds to casually write Ninth Symphony while fully deaf, while people around him are just like, dude, how? At the premiere everyone goes wild, but Beethoven is just awkwardly sitting there, cause well you know, he's f***ing deaf. In his final years he got super sick, lead poisoning, liver failure and all the stuff like that. Who knows why? So anyways, he dies in 1827 in a stormy night, apparently shaking his fists at the sky before doing so. Moral of the story, if you get very rich, try buying decent quality wine to not die. Anyways, I guess that's it. Class dismissed. Now go get a job. Also subscribe if you want to see more.